If any of you have ever been stuck on making a decision, not knowing what decision that you need to make, maybe it's breaking up with that person, maybe it's should I leave that job, maybe it's should I go down this direction or this direction, should I quit that thing, should I say yes to this, should I say no to that? If you've ever been stuck in a crossroad, I'm gonna give you a very simple idea that you can start to adopt that's gonna make your life easier, right? And that is thinking, well, I'm sure you've had the time when you've been lost in while you've been driving or while you've been walking, and you get your phone out and you get out Google Maps, right? You type in the GPS, this is where you want to go, and the GPS shows you where you are and where you want to go. But if you've ever been driving, you'll know that, you'll know that the GPS doesn't tell you the whole entire route. It just says the very first step. Right? It doesn't say you got to turn left, you got to turn right, then go around the roundabout, then 300 meters down the road, then turn left again. Otherwise, you'd get overwhelmed. And I feel that the mind is just like that. The mind wants to know the whole entire map before you take the very first step. And that's why a lot of indecision is created. Because you say, I don't know what I should do. Like, or I make this decision and I want to know how the whole entire thing's going to work out before I even take the very first step. But if you just take a deep breath in that moment and you just go, and instead of asking the head, you ask this bad boy down here, your hearts. What does my heart want me to do right now? And you just pause, and you allow the very first answer to come up without judgment. And usually that is the answer that your heart is guiding you to go on. So you take a deep breath, you silence the mind. Maybe you need to take a few deep breaths. Maybe you need to put your hand on your heart and connect to this thing for 5 to 10 minutes. And then ask, what is my heart guiding me to do right now? What decision is my heart guiding me to make right now? And that answer that comes up, that's the thing that you get to do. And the GPS, which is this, your heart, isn't going to tell you the whole entire route. It's just going to say the very first step. Just like a GPS. The GPS says, turn left in 300 meters. Then when you turn left in 300 meters, then it's going to tell you the next step. Then after you take the next step, then it's going to tell you the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step. And the heart is the same thing. Once you take that deep breath, or for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or even just one deep breath, and you ask your heart, what is it guiding me to do right now? It's just going to say, leave. Leave that job. Leap. It's going to say to book that trip. It's going to say to call that person. It's going to say to break up with this person. It's going to say to get back with that person. And then after you make the next decision, the next step, then it's going to tell you the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step. And that idea that I've adopted has made me take so many leaps in my life, and magic has occurred because of it. And also because I'm not trying to figure out how the whole entire thing is going to work out before I take my very first step. For example, there was a time when I was in Africa, and this was last year. I was in Africa, and I was doing this little exercise. I was writing and journaling, and I asked my heart, like, what is it that it really wants to do? Because I was living in my mom's garage at the time, right? And I knew that I was feeling this heaviness in my chest of the thought of going from Africa back into my mom's garage and living there. Because I had all these big dreams, I had all these visions, and I knew that my environment back at home wasn't supporting me. So I asked myself, what does my heart want me to do? And the very first thing that came up was go to Bali. I've never been to Bali. I know a few friends that have been to Bali. I didn't know why this was telling me to go Bali, but it just said to go to Bali. Now, keep in mind, I had less than $1,000 in my bank account at the time. I was struggling financially. I was getting a little bit of money through my $20 ebooks. I had my 21-day weight loss program. I think that was like $50. And I was getting a few sales per month, but not enough to live in a different country, even though it's super cheap in Bali, right? but it just said leap. So as soon as I got back home, I booked my flight to Bali, not knowing what was going to happen. Once I got to Bali, for the very first month, I was struggling. For those of you who have heard this story, my camera broke, and that was $700. I had $900 in my bank account at the time, and I paid for a new camera, which was $600 to $700, knowing that money was gonna come back. I didn't know how, but I just knew there was this inner knowing that money was gonna come back. So that was the next GPS that's the next step that my heart was telling me to do, just like a GPS, to buy that camera. So first step, book the trip to Bali. Second step, once you arrive, go here. Third step, once you do that, buy that camera. Fourth step, I was walking down the road. For those of you who have seen my breathwork session with Lucas, if you look back, if you just type in changing my relationship with money, Matt Karma on YouTube, you can watch that video. I met that dude, right? He helps me heal my trauma around money, of feeling so much shame and guilt around money. My scarcity around money changed. And then from that, money started to pour in. Then after that, I met more amazing people. Then after that, I launched my retreat from meeting people in Bali. Then after that, the retreat was 90% booked out. And like all these things started to happen because I just took the very first step, not knowing how it was all going to work out. Trust this. Trust it. When you do this, your whole entire life will change. So I really hope that this video has inspired you. And I want to know, I'm going to invite you to do this right now. After this video ends, just take 1 minute. 1 minute to take deep breaths, connect to this, put your hand on your heart. And after that 1 minute, ask yourself, what decision is my heart guiding me to do right now? What decision is my heart guiding me to make right now? And then comment that down below. And I invite you to do it, whatever that thing is. So I love you. I'm looking forward to reading your comments, and until I see you all in the next video, remember to love all living beings, and most importantly, love thyself.